to LGBTQ, and now we are at plus. There is no single movie that comes out of Hollywood that does not have an LGBTQ episode. Is this a societal problem? Good morning, my lovely people. We are here again at Hekima Hub. My name is Mary Kadhomiriongo, and our discussion today is the elephant in the room, gender ideology, or the common name LGBTQ plus. You know, that phrase keeps growing. And this is an area that we cannot bury our heads from. This is a discussion we need to have as a community. LGBTQ plus, as it keeps growing. What was really the originality of LGBTQ? This started in the US as a movement, and it was equated to the civil rights movement. The civil rights movement was whereby the blacks were agitating, you know, for rights. They didn't have the rights as the white people had. That's where the civil rights movement, the Martin Luther movement started. And when the gender ideology aspect came in, they justified it using the civil rights movement. But just for a moment, let's just ask ourselves, where does this all come from? LGBTQ, you know, the lesbian, the gay, the queer, you know, the transsexual. Where does this all start? Was this in our society? Is this a societal problem, or is it a biological problem? But just to dig deeper, what really defines a woman? Why are you a woman, or why are you a man? You know, did you make a choice to be a man? Why do you have the structure of a woman if you're a woman? And why do you have the structure of a man if you're a man? Many people will actually say they are men or they are women because they carry the men's sexual organs or the female sexual organs. But if you dig deeper in biology, even the bone structure of a man is very different from the bone structure of a woman. Even the knees, even the chest, even the pelvic bone. A woman's body or a man's body is dictated by not just the hormones, even at creation. When you are created, at the point of formation, if you are a man, you carried everything identified as a woman. So what happens to a human being who gets to a point and say, you know what, I don't feel like I am a man, or I don't feel like I am a woman. I'm going to go through a sex change. And you go through mutilation of your body, you know, mutilating your male sexual organ to try and achieve a female sexual organ. But are you really able to change your body to achieve, say, a female body from a man? Is it really true? Or is this a narrative? Is it really something that actually happens? We need to dig into this issue deeper, because when we look at this agenda, the LGBTQ agenda, or just to mention, this phrase keeps growing. A couple of years back, we were stuck at LGBTQ, but today, actually it was at LGBT. But it went to LGBTQ, and now we are at plus. Because every single moment, the human race is identifying and adding something on that phrase to make it acceptable. It is a very well-funded agenda, very well-oiled. One of the most rich community is the LGBT community. Maybe we should ask ourselves why and how. Why are they this well financially oiled? And why, you know, the agenda of gaslighting and making every other human being on the face of the earth guilty when they ask questions about this gender ideology narrative? This is a hard question we need to ask ourselves. And it's a menace not just globally, even in the African community, and more so in the Kenyan community. These are issues even churches, even pastors, even sheikhs are not going to have these conversations boldly as they had these conversations a couple of years back. It is, if you talk about this, you're ostracized, you're judged in the community. But what is really the agenda of LGBTQ+? And the justification is that this is a biological phenomenon. Okay, I am born gay, I am born lesbian. Is that a fact? Is that true? That biologically you have a DNA you have a chromosome that defines you as a lesbian. Just an example. Is it true? This is something we need to dig deeper into. But truth be told, even backed by science, there is nobody born gay. There is nobody born lesbian. This is a process of formation from childhood. And what are these processes of formation? How do we program children to grow in a particular way? You will find even today in kids programs, Nickelodeon, kids books, there is what we call subliminal messaging. Small images on kids programs, accepting that I have two male fathers, accepting that I have two female mothers, accepting that a man could actually have, breasts. You have small little messages, subtle. You have to be really careful to pick them on TV programs, more so children programs. And now they're becoming more and more bolder. They have books, they have literature. So what choice are you giving a 6-month-old baby when you already start printing ideas in their brains? A human being formation starts from 0 to 12 years. This is where the formative years of making of a human being. That's where you imprint. It's like writing softwares on a computer software. That's what happens to the human brain from age 0 to 12 years. But when you take these years to subliminally imprint messages of acceptance, of accepting I could have two male fathers, I could have two female mothers, I could have a mother who has a beard, who dresses like a man, who behaves like a man. This you're doing in the formative years of children formation. Okay. This is one way of programming acceptance. So when they get exposed to these issues, already their minds have accepted, And this is a well orchestrated agenda. Just like so many agendas on planet Earth, they are planned, they are instigated, they are funded to achieve a particular goal. When you look at sexual abuse, most sexual abuse issues happen on children. Most abuse actually happens within families. You find fathers abusing their daughters, fathers abusing their sons, uncles, watchmen, cousins, sexual abuse of children, because children are helpless, children are vulnerable. And check out the data available. All child abuse happens within the family setting or even religious setting. On the people that we trust. You trust your mother, you trust your elder brother, you trust your cousin, you trust your pastor, you trust your sheikh, you trust your priests. When children say go to the madrasas, they go to cathedrals, that is the places where most of these sexual abuses happen. And when you talk to the people in the LGBT community who have grown, say, gay or have grown lesbian, they'll tell you, huge percentages, I was abused as a child. I was abused by a priest. I was abused by my mom. I was abused by my grandfather. So this abuse, which is mostly happening in small years, from 0 to 12, is still a way of programming children to be a particular way in their adult life. And when you talk to the people in these queer communities, they will tell you, this happened to me in 7 years, 8 years, 6 years. Some of them are able to step out of these situations. Some of them are not able, because this is serious programming of these children. And as they grow and they transition to teenhood, they transition to adulthood, they've already been entrenched in a particular lifestyle. Once they're entrenched in that lifestyle, there's a whole funded system of gaslighting the community that wants to help these people, funding these lifestyles, making it acceptable. Then we come and distort science, distort biology, and then we say, this is a biological phenomenon. No, it's not. And when you look at the growth of this, now you know, from 20, 30 years ago, where we talked about lesbian and gays community. Now we are talking about transgender communities, where people are changing, you know, their gender identity. You know, people are mutilating themselves, and a man wants to feel a woman, change their bodies to a woman. A woman wants to feel a man, and vice versa. And this is not the end of it. The insatiable desire by man to run away from nature keeps going on and on and on and on. And now, you know, what are they doing? Human beings are getting married to animals. I'm attracted to this species of a dog. I'm attracted to this. I'm marrying my pet. This is the level that the human race has gotten into. But what I want to point out, that this is not a biological phenomenon. This is a well-planned, orchestrated agenda attacking the family unit, attacking nature, just trying to make sure the human race steps away from the norm, steps away from normal, steps away from the natural way of it, more so tilting towards the what is not natural. Call him God, call him nature, call him source, whatever name you want to give your creator. There is a central way of how human race was supposed to live and be. The more we step away from that, the more we deviate from who we really are. Our DNA, our identity, we as a people. So why all this? It is an orchestrated plan to distort the family unit, as I mentioned it. And when you look at this kind of programming, this programming is mostly happening on children. It's very hard to recruit an adult into, say, a gay community. It's very hard. An adult who has already transitioned on the teenhood years, they are done with their high schools, college. It's very hard to recruit such a human being to say, I'm a lesbian, I'm a gay, I'm a transgender. But it is very easy to do this from on children and teenhood. That's why, for instance, in Kenya, the issue of the LGBTQ is a big problem in high schools. And you will be shocked, especially teachers in high-end secondary schools, high schools, are on payrolls of LGBT NGOs and communities funded to recruit children in these schools in very subtle ways, literally sometimes blackmailing. If you talk to your children today, and I want to give this as a warning to parents, when your child tells you, Mom, Dad, get me out of this school, do not ignore those children. These children go through a very hard time in these institutions because they are forced into gay and lesbian lifestyles, literally forced to do it. But sometimes children do not have the spaces to have these conversations. And then you ask yourself, who is this in Kenyan boarding schools who force children to get into LGBT lifestyles? Who does it benefit? A lot of questions that are not answered. There are organizations in this country that are well funded to make sure more and more young people are tilted towards that particular lifestyle. And you know, every time people ask, okay, who benefits? What is it for? The evil agenda is very well organized. And I usually say, if the good side of life is as organized as how the bad side of community is, then this world will not be where it is today. You have heard of children that have been molested in school. They have been forced to get into these things. They are actually not given a choice. And these things are actually happening even all the way from school administrations. One or two teachers sneaked in institutions to make sure they recruit as many children as possible. But why the conspiracy of silence? Years back, we had pastors who would boldly talk about this. We had sheikhs who would stand in their mosques and talk about this. We had government leaders, community leaders, Nyumba Kumi leaders who would talk about against LGBT communities, gender ideologies being pushed in our African communities. But is it the same today? It's very different today. Today, even in Pentecostal churches, the saved, the born-again Christians, the pastors, the speaking in tongues, will have a problem to stand on their pulpits and say that this is a wrong decision, this is a wrong direction. This is actually sinful, okay? To the Christian community. This is a sinful activity. They will not do it because we have people, leaders, church leaders, bishops, pastors, I don't even know how to explain this, in the Christian community that are well-known, well-funded, people recruiting, supporting, and living homosexual lives in churches. I had a pastor friend of mine who told me, Mary, as we speak today, in bishops' conferences, in pastors' conferences, you cannot actually talk about LGBTQ. You'll be ostracized. In the religious community, you will be ostracized to talk about it. So there's a whole conspiracy of silence. And this is an issue. When you go on social media, you speak about these gender ideology narratives, you will have thousands of people come on you, you know. There is a conspiracy of silence, guilt tripping the community to make sure we tilt away from the norm. We step away as much as possible. They want to make it as a norm in the society. If you look back a couple of years back, where we were as a human race, where did we stand? Where were we in all these issues? It was unheard of. This has got nothing to do with religious beliefs. This has got nothing to do with community, cultural practices. This is everything to do with humanity, nature, and just being a human being. Why is it, as a human race, we have the tendency of stepping away from nature way more than any other living thing? Look at the animals in the forest. Look at the wild. They naturally know what is supposed to be done. They naturally know how procreation is supposed to be. But the human race, with the knowledge that God gave them, distort and always run away from how it's supposed to be done. Let's look at the statistics of suicidal cases globally. Maybe we could look at, even countrywide. The largest percentage of suicide cases documented is in the LGBT community. The highest rate of drug use, not just in Kenya, statistics world over, is in the LGBT community. Why? Because deep within you, you know that you're stepping away from who you are. You're stepping away from what your Creator intended you to be. But because you've justified internally and externally, there is still that friction. There's that friction. There's a question I would want to ask you, my viewers. When a child is born, who shows that child how to suckle, the breast, how to feed? Who shows that child? There is a natural instinct in children that drives them to breastfeed, to live, to survive. No one trains them. It is a natural instinct embedded in a human being, an infant at birth. Another thing I would want to teach you. There is an instinct in the human being to survive or to live. If you take a small baby, a baby born in a hospital, throw that baby in a swimming pool, you'll be shocked that baby swims. That baby will never sink. There is a natural phenomenon for a human being to survive. It is not taught, it is embedded in our DNA. Your gender ideology, if you're born a woman, it is embedded in your DNA. So if you transition your body, you mutilate your body to be a man, you'll never be a man. Deep within, you're still a woman. So there's that conflict between who you really are and who you've transitioned to be. And you find a lot of that conflict in the heart, conflict in who am I, leads these people to huge and high percentages of drug abuse. And it leads to high levels of suicide, not just here, across the world. And when you look at America, which is a country that LGBTQ is legal, and a lot of populations have been transitioning, you will see how much distortion of the human, what the distortion of the human race can do. So we have this whole system in America that is now being taught in schools, the drag queens, kids as young as 5 years, 4 years, being chosen. You can choose your gender. So this is now being taught in schools by the teachers. It's no longer now in books. It's no longer now in movies. It is now being pushed down by an education system in America. So you find these children one day wake up and tell their parents, you know, mom, I'm not feeling like I'm a boy. I feel like I'm a man. And these children are allowed to do transgender operations funded by governments, funded by organizations, without the consent of their parents. This is the level of distortion of society where we are headed to. Maybe in Africa we've not gotten there, but there are chances that we could get there if we do not arrest these situations. And for a couple of years, this has been happening in America, but of course now they're trying to reverse that back because of the distortion. Now the women have to, the transitioned, say, men who are women, or women who are men, are now participating in women's sports. And biologically, the way a woman is made is not the way a man is made. The weakest man transitioning to be a woman would beat a woman in a woman's sports. I've even seen it here in Kenya. You go to these high-end malls and they have toilets for women, they have toilets for men, and now we have toilets for transgenders, you know. This is distortion of the society to the highest level. And the conspiracy to silence, the conspiracy of gaslighting anyone who want to talk against it, and making them feel like you're judging, you know, comparing this old gender ideology to black and white, you know, and comparing it to the things that we could not change as a human being, to make sure it's acceptable, to make sure it's a norm in the society. It will never be. It will never be. I will just give you an example. That's why you talk through your mouth and you breathe through your nose. It's a biological system the way you've built. You look through your eyes, you hear through your ears. There is no single morning I would decide I'm no longer going to feed from my mouth, I'm going to feed from my nose. I'll choke to death. It's a biological and natural phenomenon that has been given to you by God. And when you look at all these things, you look, why is this an agenda? There is no single movie that comes out of Hollywood that does not have an LGBTQ episode. Literally, movies from the last, say, 20 years, systematically, every single movie must have an LGBTQ character, episode, or entirely, these movies are based on that gender ideology narrative. Why? Why? Those are the questions we need to ask ourselves. In Nickelodeon, in small programs, even in books, where we are talking to, you're trying to make your child sleep, and you're showing them images of transgender. You're showing them of a man with a women breast. You're showing them the images of a woman with beards. Why else would so much money be put in such an ideology? It is because it's an ideology with an intent, with a plan. I think as the human race, we need to step away from being comfortable in whatever is served. We need to embrace critical thinking on issues. We need not trust the powers that be, trust authorities that just come and drive the human race to a particular direction. Critical thinking is asking the hard questions. Why are we being pushed in this direction? Why do they want us to follow this? These are hard questions we need to ask ourselves, and we need to have these discussions as a community. So for the communities like America, whereby they've entirely embraced LGBTQ, and they keep adding a plus and a plus and a plus. One day you're attracted to your dog, another day you're attracted to, it's crazy. You are a bisexual, where you're finding one woman with a heterosexual husband, with a homosexual husband. It is a total mess. What has this community achieved with this gender ideology narrative? Is it working for them? Is it making the community happier? What are they achieving? When we allow gay communities to hire surrogate mothers, to have children that are raised by a gay couple, what are we doing to those children? You're not giving that child an opportunity to grow in a normal setting of life. What are we doing to that community? Okay, maybe That's what they've chosen as a community. But does it work? Does it make that community better? There are analyses and questions we need to ask ourselves. Have we trivialized human life, human race, human ideologies to this level? Have we chosen to sink this far as the human race? Are we able to recollect ourselves and come back to sanity, to sanctity, and think, where exactly are we going as a human race? And as I conclude this introduction to this topic, I welcome comments, every type of comment that you'd want, pin it down there. Don't worry, could be positive, could be negative, but these are conversations we'd want to have. And in my next episode, I'm going to be joined by a church leader. We look at this issue deeply. Am I really, maybe I'm being a bit judgmental, or what exactly is the problem in the society? Why have we drifted so quickly, so low, at such a high speed as a community? I wouldn't even mind having conversations with a publicly professed LGBTQ person. There's nothing wrong with talking about it. Or even one who has transitioned, what's working for them. Or one who has transitioned and is regretting. These are conversations we should have and see as a human race. How can we salvage ourselves? Because this is what we are called to do. Thank you so much for having time with me. But keep locked. We are going to have another conversation of the same. Thank you.